It's 11 o'clock and time for Ask Pastor Deb with Pastor Deborah Watlington House here on WOSDRadio.com. Let her story about recovery inspire you. And of course, you're welcome to ask questions from this woman of God. And now it's time to Ask Pastor Deb.
Good morning and welcome to Ask Pastor Deb. I am Pastor Deborah Watlington House, your host for the hour. I've been a pastor for 20 years, spreading the gospel in a unique and radical way. I am a peer recovery coach specialist and the worship coordinator at Free Worship Center. This show allows you to ask questions about different topics, and I provide answers using a variety of resources and techniques. I invite you to sit back and enjoy the show. Today's topic is your setbacks can become your comebacks. I'd like to send a big shout out to all my podcast partners and to Al Greer, the owner of WOSD Radio and AG Entertainment, for your love and support you give me on my recovery journey. Also, I want to share some encouragement for self-development from Pastor Deb of Ask Pastor Deb Recovery Cafe. The risk of relapse. Nike made millions of dollars with their slogan, "Just Do It." I have my own slogans that keep me sober. The first one is, don't do it. And the second one is, let God do it. You see, my new normal is amazing. I admit that I am powerless when it comes to my battle with addiction, but I also admit that my God is powerful and He has healed me from the bondage of addiction. He has given me everything I need to remain sober, and He is keeping me from relapsing. All I have to do is keep my mind on Him and the things of God. When I surrendered my struggle with alcoholism over to God, all hell broke loose. Now, I probably lost a whole bunch of listeners with that. But let me just finish what I'm talking about. And I don't want anyone to be confused, but that is my truth. When I began my sobriety journey, I took off my clergy attire. I let go of who I was to everybody else. I stopped caring for and about everyone else's needs, and I became naked and open in the face of God's arms. I decided to trust God, and I fought like hell and all the stuff I was going through just to stay sober, because I know that I am victorious through Jesus. I am glad I can be an example now for others. And I often tell my friends how glad I am that God exposed me. And it always tickles me by one of my friends. She always responds, "Well, I'm glad He didn't expose me." God let me know the moment I surrendered my struggles, He was going to make me an example. And I have been open about my experiences with alcoholism. It does not bother me to share my truth, my testimony, or my daily struggles and victories, because they all bring God glory. It's my new normal and I love it, and I'm not ashamed that I am healing through recovery. The best part about my exposure, I have been chosen by God to help others get to Him so He can release them from their addiction bondage. I live life to the fullest. My new normal is living my life to its full potential, with God leading me and guiding me every step. There are so many scriptures I meditate on and I study on a daily basis. And there are many recovery resources I have access to. But it's my relationship with Christ that keeps me from going back to the darkest place in my journey, that pit that I place myself in. So instead of a bucket list, I have a victory list. First thing on my victory list is I write books. And I have so much inside of me, and so I must write all of these books that are inside of me. The second thing on my list is change someone's life because Jesus did it for me and I have to pay it forward. And the final thing on my list, and yes, it's only 3 things on my victory list right now, and that is to dream big. Thank you. And that's from Ask Pastor Deb of Ask Pastor Deb Recovery Cafe. And now, today's sermon. My setback set me up for a blessing. And that is the story of a dreamer. You see, the story of Joseph begins in Genesis 37. The Bible explicitly tells us that Joseph was the favorite of his father Jacob. Joseph hears Jacob and his brothers talking and forecasts 7 years of plenty followed by 7 years of famine. He recommends a plan to collect grain and store it for the lean years. So that's what the story of Joseph is all about. Now, I'm going to fill in all the blanks for you so you can understand what I am talking about. My setbacks set me up for a blessing as well. Like Joseph, on January 29, 2017, I found myself in a pit. Like Joseph, I was a dreamer with a bright future ahead of me, and I had lots of haters riding on my coattail. Like Joseph, I grew up in a middle-class household, and I adored my father. And I did whatever he wanted me to do, even if it caused others to hate me. You see, I felt like Joseph felt the day his brothers threw him in a dark hole and left him there to die on January 29th, 2017. But just like Joseph, that infamous pit stop was just a setup for a blessing. This morning, I want to share my testimony through a sermonic moment titled, My Setback Set Me Up for a Blessing. For those of you who don't know me or know me by name, my name is Pastor Deborah Wallington House. I am a woman of God who loves to serve his people by using the gifts and talent he has given me. So now, because that sounded so real to you, didn't it? And it sounded so good. But I really want to reintroduce myself to you. Hi, my name is Deborah, and I am a believer of Christ who struggles with the effects of alcoholism. In chapter 37, Joseph was on top of his game, and some say he was his father's favorite child. Some even say he was a little arrogant, while others say he was a bit spoiled. Matthew Henry's concise commentary breaks chapter 37 down like this. See, he kind of gives us Joseph's victory list, like I gave you at the beginning of this sermon. First, we learn Joseph is love of his father, Jacob. But we also learn of his hatred by his brothers. And this is found in verses 1 through 4. And then we also learn from Joseph's victory list about his dreams. And those are found in verses 5 through 11. Second, we are told that Jacob sends Joseph to visit his brethren. And then there they conspire his death. And those are found in verses 12 through 22. And then Joseph's brothers, they sell him in verses 23 through 30. And third, Jacob was deceived. And Joseph was sold to Potiphar in verses 31 through 36. So first on Joseph's victory list is Joseph being hated by his brothers and Joseph's dreams. And because the Message rendition Bible makes everything so plain. I'm going to read straight from Genesis 37, verses 1 through 11. Meanwhile, Jacob had settled down where his father had lived, the land of Canaan. This is the story of Jacob. The story continues with Joseph, 17 years old at the time, helping out his brothers in herding the flocks. These were his half-brothers, actually, the sons of his father's wife, Bilhah and Zilpah. And Joseph brought his father bad reports on them. Israel loved Joseph more than any of his other sons because he was the child of his old age. And he made him an elaborately embroidered coat. When his brothers realized that their father loved him more than them, they grew to hate him. They wouldn't even speak to him. Joseph had a dream. When he told it to his brothers, they hated him even more. He said, "Listen to this dream I had. We were all out in the field gathering bundles of wheat. All of a sudden, my bundle stood straight up, and your bundles circled around it and bowed down to mine." His brother said, "So, you're going to rule us? You're going to boss us around?" And they hated him more than ever because of his dreams and the way he talked. He had another dream and told this one also to his brothers. "I dreamed another dream. The sun and the moon and the 11 stars bowed down to me." When he told it to his father and brothers, his father reprimanded him. "What's with all this dreaming? Am I, your mother, and your brothers all supposed to bow down to you?" Now his brothers were really jealous, but his father brooded over the whole business. You see, when God gives you a dream, it's really beyond us. And when God gives a dream, it's always beyond us. It'll always be bigger than us simply because it comes from God. So the second thing on Joseph's victory list was the fact that Joseph's brother conspired his death. And that's found in verses 12 through 13. And actually, it goes all the way to verses 22. And so I'll read it again because it's so plain and simple in the Message rendition. And it says, his brothers had gone off to Shechem, where they were pasturing their father's flock. Israel said to Joseph, "Your brothers are with the flocks in Shechem. Come, I want to send you to them." And Joseph said, "I'm ready." He said, "Go and see how your brothers and the flocks are doing and bring me back a report." He sent him off from the valley of Hermon and Shechem. A man met him as he was wandering through the fields and asked him, "What are you looking for?" "I'm trying to find my brothers. Do you have any idea where they are grazing their flocks?" The man said, "They've left here, but I overheard them saying, 'Let's go to Dottam.'" So Joseph took off, tracked his brothers down, and found them in Dottam. They spotted him off in the distance. By the time he got to them, they had cooked up a plot to kill him. The brothers were saying, "Here comes that dreamer. Let's kill him and throw him into one of these old cisterns. We can say that a vicious animal ate him up. We'll see what his dreams amount to." Reuben heard the brothers talking and intervened to save him. "We're not going to kill him. No murder. Go ahead and throw him in this cistern out here in the wild, but don't hurt him." Reuben planned to go back later and get him out and take him back to his father.